Hey everyone, welcome back to That's Wild. This is the video some of you have been waiting for since the beginning. Yes, that's right. Welcome to Sawmill Shed Build Part 2. So out here at the clearing, I've just started to put in some of my foundation pieces. What I've done is I've poured some footer pieces that are 16 by 16, 4 inches thick. And those are going to be what my floor beams are going to sit on. So what I've gotten one in so far. I've gotten it pretty level and about where I want that first corner to be. And then over here I've started my second hole. So what I've done is I've dug down 4 or 5 inches or so, and I've put in some 1-inch gravel. Filled that up a little bit, and then I have some sand here, some fines. I'm going to put that on top, just like this one over here. I'm going to get it packed down pretty well, level it as best I can, and then I'm going to put the next footer on, get it lined up, and then we'll move on to the next ones. So I wanted to do my shed this way because I didn't want the building to be completely in the ground. I didn't want to put like posts or something and have them buried or concreted in. I wanted it to be sitting on top of the ground. Don't ask why, it's just kind of how I want to do it. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to have six footer pieces, and then each one's going to have a 16-foot beam span. So overall it's going to be about 32 feet long. And then I'm going 12 feet wide. So that's going to be the overall dimensions of the building. So we'll get this filled up and try to make them level with each other. Unfortunately, where I live, there is no such thing as flat ground. So over in that corner, that's going to be kind of low and a little difficult to build up. I may have to stack boards or something on top of the footers to get my beams to be level. But we'll come to that when we hit that road. But for now, I'll get these first two in and then move on to the next. Alright, so I got that sand piled up a bit, and I got my footer put down. I have the string line running from there to there, and I have a pencil mark that's about 3 inches from the edge of the blocks. It's kind of the margin I wanted to keep. So I have that string line lined up to that one, and then this one's lined up to that. And then I got the lines, 12 feet of the lines going this way, 12 feet apart. So that's the width of the building. So now I'm going to check for level on this one. Get a little level here. May need to invest in a level one of these days. It's pretty good that way. Build it up just a tiny bit in this corner. Alrighty. I think that's pretty good, level enough for these anyway. I'll end up having to shim the beams I have just to make those the most level part before I start building. So with this one set pretty well, we can move on to the next one. Yeah, it looks good. So we'll move on to the second middle one. That's going to be around here somewhere. It's about 16 feet away from that one. So I'll get that marked out and start putting a hole in and go get some more gravel. Well, here it is. I got all the footers put in. I ended up bringing in some dirt on this low end. Well, pretty much all of it was low except the first one. But I brought dirt in and got it raised up to where I want it. So I got all of them set now. And the next thing to do is to cut my beams to length. And then we'll get them set on the pads. So let's get to that. So what I'm going to be using to cut my beams to length, I don't want them nice and square. So I stumbled across this nifty little jig the other day. It's a flat top. So it basically hooks up with your chainsaw and allows you to make nice square cuts. So it's got these clamps here, or you can screw it onto your wood, whatever you want to do. And then it comes with this little axle piece that screws onto your chainsaw lug. And then they slip together and you have a nice pivot point and create a pretty nice square cut. So we'll just clamp it on here. Get it nice and tight. Then your saw, it just slips in here. See how it pivots nice like that? So I've already measured my setback to where I can make a mark on my board to where I put the jig at, and it'll come out right where I want my cut to be with the saw. So as you see here, I have my line right here. That's where I line my jig up to. And my saw will cut right there, which will put it right about 16 feet. So we'll give it a cut and see how well it turns out. Well, as you can see, it's pretty easy to make a decent looking cut now. Just loosen the clamps, and there you go. Nice square cut. Now, one thing I do want to mention is when I bought it, and you have to go through an adjusting procedure to true up the axle to be cut actually square. I unfortunately stripped out one of these Allen screws here, and I didn't feel like it was my fault. It wasn't really tightening down on it a whole lot, and just kind of skipped the threads and stopped tightening. So I contacted Flat Top, and they got back with me that same day, which it was also on a Sunday, which was pretty cool. They called me. The guy I talked with, he was nice and was understanding about the situation I got in. He said he'd make it right. I ended up fixing mine myself because that's kind of the guy I am. So I drilled and tapped that hole out. But he said he'd still make it right. So they're going to send me out the post adapter kit so that you can use this on round posts, which I thought was pretty cool. So shout out to Flat Top. Their customer services seem top tier. So I'm gonna still keep using this, and we'll get the rest of my beams cut, and hopefully we can get them set on my footers. So as you can see, I got my bottom beams laid out. They're all put on the footers. And what I want to do before setting them completely in place is I want to make them a little more resilient to weather. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to paint some old motor oil on it, just a cheap, easy way to add a little bit of weather protection. And then I have these pieces of plastic I cut out the other day, and I'm going to put them on the bottom in between the concrete and the beam. So hopefully that adds a good barrier to keep them from rotting quickly. So we'll do that, and hopefully they last a long time. So I got my first beam painted up with oil, and now I'm going to tack on these plastic plates, one on each end, just set them up off the concrete a little bit. So I'm not a master builder or anything. I'm pretty novice at most stuff. So I don't know if this is the right thing to do or if it's actually going to help me, but it feels right, so I think it'll work. So if I do something that's wrong or against code, don't oust me in the comments. Helpful tips I would take though, but I'm just trying to learn. Have fun while doing it. And maybe make a Fun little hobby. I cut these pieces of plastic from looked like an old mud flap I found laying around, so they were pretty much free. Free stuff's always nice, and I think it'll put it to good use. So with those plastic plates on, I'll flip this back over. Try to keep it out of the mud. We'll set it down. So that's about where I want it set. I'll have to go back and level it when I'm done with all the other ones. But we'll move on to the next ones and get them all oiled up. Well, now that I can see again, I'm going to go ahead and finish putting the oil on this beam. I'll put my plastic pieces on, and then we can move on to aligning them all and making sure they're level. All right, we'll get these last two plastic pieces put on, and we'll flip it over. So I spent a little bit of time getting them all lined up, 12 feet apart, making them pretty straight. So now I have a laser level line in the middle there. So I'm going to go around the corners and I'm going to measure their difference, and whichever one's the highest, I'm going to have that as my starting point. And I'm going to bring all the others up to that level to make the whole thing at the same plane. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. I made quite a bit of progress. Pretty happy of how it's going so far. Unfortunately, the weather and the daylight isn't hanging out as well as it used to. So it's kind of hard making videos this time of year. So next episode, whenever that's going to be, I'll get some shims and I'll start leveling these out. And then hopefully we can start putting our floor joists on. Again, I'm not really sure when that'll be. Maybe next spring. But I'll still try to post some sort of content, maybe less frequent than I have been, but I hope you guys are enjoying it anyway. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.